Okay, one thing that's very useful is knowing how to actually keep a bread starter alive. It's really easy. You probably have to feed it, which is what I'm going to show you, once every 24 to 48 hours. It depends on how active your starter is and what the current environment is. You can tell when you need to feed it because when you're done feeding it, it's going to be about this high in the jar. Then the bacteria is going to create a lot of bubbles and it's going to raise up, and that's totally fine. It's fine when it hits the top. You need to start feeding it as soon as it starts to drop. It's usually between a day to 2 days. If it's really warm out, it's closer to a day. If it's kind of chilly, wintertime, it's a little chillier in the house, it might be 2 days before you need to feed it. But the trick is you're going to see it rise, 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 and then when it starts to drop a little, that means the bacteria is starting to run low on food. You wait too long, the bacteria is going to start eating the rest of the bacteria, and then you don't have a very good starter anymore. So start off, we need to measure about 10-ish grams of the starter. Take, you can use a little dinner knife or whatever. I like using an offset spatula. Stir it up really well so you have a mixture that represents the entire culture that you've got here. We want to use a digital scale. Make sure we get this accurate. We're going to do this all in grams. So I want about 10 grams. Going a little bit over is fine. And that's 11, 12-ish. Totally fine. Set that off to the side. The rest of this, you typically throw in the compost or you throw it away. You can give this to friends so they can have a starter as well. But so I don't have to run to the trash right now, I'm just going to put it in this stainless steel bowl, because we actually reuse this same vessel and throw everything back in there. Let's see what it looks like, I guess, in case you're interested. It's an awful lot like creamy peanut butter, just a different color. If you don't know someone who has a starter that you could get some from, just shoot me an instant message or something, and I'm sure we can find a way to get you some starter from this batch. This culture actually came from the Josie Bakery, and I've been keeping it alive since I got it from there for a few years now. And I know several other bakers that I've given it to who've been keeping their version alive for several years as well. All right, did a pretty good job cleaning out. There's still some residue. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean. We just need it clean enough that it's not really the majority of our culture anymore. So then we have to measure out some water. We want 80 grams of like lukewarmish, maybe even slightly chilly, but not cold water. You don't want hot water though, because the hot water will cause the bacteria to be too active, and then you've got to feed this very quickly. So I like to use an easy pour measuring cup and then just pour it into a glass jar until I hit 80 grams. It's just a lot easier that way. Okay. And a little over. It's often easier to go slightly over. Than it is to try to nail it perfectly, because you can get it done faster. Here's a little tip. You now have two vessels with water in it, and it's really easy to set them down and forget which one was correct. So the one that you poured from originally, dump it out in the sink right away. That way you never accidentally pour the vessel with the wrong volume of water into your starter and screw things up. Okay, so we've got our jar. We've got the 10-ish grams of starter that we pulled from the active batch. If you scrape that back into the jar we just took it from, All right, now we take our flour, and you want to use a whole wheat flour, one that hasn't been bleached and one where they haven't removed the bran from it. So that's why, I mean, technically all flour is actually whole wheat flour. But when they say whole wheat, what they really mean is they didn't remove the bran from the grinding process. And so that's what gives it that browner color. You want the bran in this instance because the bran is one of the things that the bacteria feeds off the best. It gives it really good food, and it gives it a longer period of time for which to eat that food. So got our got the 10-ish grams of starter in here, zero it out, and then this part can be kind of messy, but we want 80 grams of flour. So it's 80 grams of flour, 80 grams of water, 10 grams of starter. Equal parts flour and water. Perfect. All right, so we got our 80 grams of flour. Let's set that off to the side. Our 80 grams of water. Pour that right in. And we're going to stir this all up. Get as much of it as you can mixed pretty homogeneously. You don't want any dry pockets. If there are any dry pockets, you're typically going to see them in the bottom here. So just take a look at the bottom. Make sure you got that all scraped up nicely. Scrape it off, and then I like to kind of scrape the sides down and push everything towards the center so that you got one homogeneous lump all working together to create delicious, delicious bread. Now from here, you got a couple options. You can put the lid on and just set it out on a shelf in your kitchen, nowhere super hot, so probably not direct sunlight, not necessarily anywhere cold either, but just leave it out on the counter and then you feed it once every day or two. You would do that if you're planning to make bread in the next few days. If you're not planning to make bread for at least a week, but probably more like a couple weeks, take this and throw it in the fridge. Never the freezer. The freezer will kill it, but throw it in the fridge. You can leave it in the fridge for a couple weeks, technically even a couple months. Don't tell anyone I said that though, without having to feed it. The cooler environment will keep the bacteria moving a little bit slower, and so they've got plenty of food to survive for a while. You won't notice the bubbles as easily in the fridge, and if you want to start baking with it again, you need to take it out and feed it for a few days to get it active before you're going to be able to make bread again. But if you're not making bread for 2 weeks, a month or two, don't waste the flour every single day of feeding this. Just throw it in the fridge, keep it in there, feed it every couple of weeks, and you're going to be totally fine. Feeding steps are the same exact thing that we did here. The only difference might be after you do this, before throwing it in the fridge, leave it on the counter for maybe an hour so that the bacteria starts going, and then throw it back in the fridge. Other than that, you're set. 10 grams of starter, 80 grams of flour, roomish temperature, maybe slightly chilly, 80 grams of flour, and you want the whole wheat flour that's still got the bran in it. It's going to be the flour that's a little brownish. I like the Bob's Red Mill. They're very consistent. Flavor's always phenomenal. So that's how you feed your starter. And again, if you need some starter, shoot me a direct message or leave a comment below and I'll reach out and we'll find a way to get you some. I'm sure I can get some shipped out to you somehow. All right, take care.